When I was a little girl, I can remember starting kindergarten at a brand new school. When I walked inside of the classroom, all of the children were looking at me. I was pretty nervous. My teacher, Mrs. Delaney, walked up to me, took me by my little hand, escorted me to the front of the class, introduced me, and then in a very sweet and calm voice asked me to take a seat. I sat directly in front of the class. Now, was it because I was really nervous and wanted all the children to stop staring at me? Was it because that was the only open seat? Or was it because it was the closest? No matter what it was a simple decision. Children's decisions are so simple. Follow the directions, I thought. She asked me to take a seat, and so I will. Children's minds are so open and beautiful, and they see the world through different lenses. Now, what if that situation would have went a lot different? What if, as a little girl, I walked into the classroom and my teacher took me by my little hand and told me to take a seat? And I decided to walk around the classroom and look at every table, deciding where my perfect seat would be. Now, one of the tables has a couple of people of a different nationality. No, won't sit there. One table has a little girl with a hairstyle that I do not like, and another little girl that happens to have on a color that's not my favorite. Or the other table has a little boy that happens to be digging in his nose. Oh, I cannot sit there. Imagine how long it would have taken me to make a decision. I don't know when it happened, but somehow I went from being that little girl that would just simply make a decision because this is what I was told, to being an adult, skeptical, making decisions based on preconceived notions. And again, I don't know when it happened, but I realized when I noticed it. Now, understand, it was never because there was a man at the table digging in his nose. Well, let's hope not. And it wasn't because it was the right thing to do. It was just something that came because it was a taught behavior. Society teaches us how to respond to other people. And before we know it, we fall into this judgmental way of living. Now, let me ask you a question. What if you were the new kid on the block, brand new student in a class right now, and you walk in and the professor tells you to quickly take a seat? Now, there's only 3 tables to choose from. One of the tables is full of punk rockers, face full of makeup, wild hair. The second table has a group of young African-American men with wife beaters and tattoos all over their arms. The third table is a table full of beautiful women, well manicured. And when you looked over at that table, one just happened to look up at you and smile. Which table would you choose? Would you choose the table that was closest to you? Would you choose the table that had an open seat? Well, they all have open seats. Or would you choose the table that made you feel more comfortable? Whichever one you chose, you did in your mind. But the question that I have for you is why? Why did you choose that particular table? Let's break down these tables, shall we? The table of punk rockers full of makeup and wild hair, well, they are all members of the same community church, very nice and sweet people. The second table of young African-American men with wife beaters on and tattoos on their arms, well, all of them are medical and law students that are participating in a social experiment. And the third table of women, beautiful, with beautiful dresses and manicured nails, And that one that just happened to look up at you and smile, well, she is crazy. She's manipulative, and right when she looked up at you and smiled, you just happened to be in her line of view because she was considering how to kill her husband. Plot twist. Bet you did not see that coming, okay? But you chose one of these tables based on how they looked. Let's be honest. There are beautiful people that have preconceived notions about you that will keep you from meeting them. And you have preconceived notions about people that will keep them from meeting you. Now, here recently, I had the opportunity of taking my grandmother and my 8-year-old nephew to Disney World. See, this was very important to me because my grandmother is 88 and she has dementia. Her memory is starting to slide more and more. And so it was very important for me to create a beautiful experience for her. And so when I came up with this idea for Disney World, I just could imagine at the time my grandmother's childlikeness coming out of her and the smile on her face, and she did not disappoint. Being an 88-year-old woman, we put her in a wheelchair and we rolled her through the park, and to see the smile on her face as we put her on the carousel with us, or another ride, It's a Small World. To see her look around with such glee in her eyes and clapping her hands alongside her great-grandson, who's 8 years old. 80 years apart, and they are both enjoying the happiest place on earth. Now, at the beginning of the day, we were told that at a particular time, they were going to have a show on the castle, and there were going to be fireworks. So I had the smart idea. Let's hurry up and get to the front of the park way before the actual show begins, maybe like an hour, hour and a half, so that we can get a very good seat. Well, apparently, half of everyone else thought the same thing, because when we got there, there were already seas of people waiting for this phenomenal show to begin. We get a perfect spot. My grandmother's in her wheelchair. My family is there. We make makeshift pallets on the ground so that we can have a seat, and we are enjoying each other and laughing. But shortly after that, it started to rain. Not a heavy rain, just a sprinkle. We made sure that my grandmother was perfectly good as she had on her really cute little hat and her makeshift poncho. Shortly after that, it began to rain harder. Panic sets in because, oh my God, it is raining outside and I don't have anywhere to put my grandmother. There's no shelter around. There's so many people. There's no way I can get her out of, the way of the rain quick enough for her not to get wet. And then I look up. There was a man coming across, and he happened to put his hood over my grandmother's little head and wrapped her in his jacket. He said, "Hey, use this." I smiled and said, "Thank you so much," as I watched him walk away through the crowd, wondering where he came from. He made his way through the seas of people. Shortly after that, it stopped raining, the problem had ceased, and everyone was happy. After this beautiful show of fireworks and the show on the castle, we had so much fun. I get the jacket from my grandmother and I find him through the crowd. As I made my way through the crowd and I get in front of him, I notice his beautiful wife and his 2 small children. I hand him the jacket and I thanked him profusely for helping me with my grandmother. He said, "You know what? You may need it later. Why don't you keep it?" At that moment, my eyes began to fill with tears because I could not believe someone was being so nice at a moment like this. He was giving away his jacket. When I looked over at his wife, my eyes were filled with tears and I could not find the words to say. And she looked at me and she said, "Don't worry about it. I understand. I see you." She saw me. How did she see me through a sea of people? How did she know the struggle that I was going through with my grandmother in that wheelchair as the rain fell? How could she feel the panic over all of these people? And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, "You're doing good. And I saw you. And we were happy to help." Once I got my emotions together, I smiled and I thanked her again. And I said, "Well, where are you from?" And she said, "We are from the deepest part of Mississippi. We do our absolute hardest not to treat people any type of way, but to treat them with love and respect." I understood exactly what she meant. But she saw across a sea of people that I needed help. It didn't matter that we were different nationalities. It didn't matter that we didn't have the same hairstyle. It did not matter that I didn't know her before then, and we didn't even know each other's names. But she felt my heart, and that was so important to me. It was so life-changing for me. And I wondered, how many people were closer to me that judged, that wondered why we were not prepared for the rain, that wondered why we had my grandmother out there in a wheelchair? How many people thought in their mind, maybe I should help, and then changed it quickly after they thought about it too long? How many people actually turned their back on us? But it took one woman across a sea of people to look up and to notice me, and for her husband to walk up to complete strangers and offer up his jacket to assist. Would you have helped me? Now you may be thinking, yeah, of course I would have helped you, L.A. Would you? Now, I know you're probably thinking, how could we possibly not have preconceived notions? Or you're probably asking, where is this possible? Where we could be beautiful, amazing people? I'm glad you asked. Welcome to Tomorrowland. Yes, right where you are watching me from, wherever you are, whether it's in your home or at work or in your car. Hopefully it's not in your car. I have transported you to a beautiful place called Tomorrowland. In Tomorrowland, you are loved, you have peace, you have joy. In Tomorrowland, you can wear whatever you want to wear. You can love whoever you want to love. You can smile with a mouth full of teeth, or you can smile with none at all. You can enjoy everything in your life without feeling judged, because there's no judgment here in Tomorrowland. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to get to know you. I know what you're thinking. I know me, but do you? Do you really know how you will truly respond in situations where people want to be seen or need to be seen? Do you truly know what role you have been playing? When was the last time you walked outside of your front door and you smiled at your neighbor for nothing? Just said hello. When was the last time you went through your closet and picked out clothes that you can donate to the homeless or to a domestic violence shelter? When was the last time you fed someone who was homeless or gave them a little change without thinking in the back of your mind, wondering how they got into that situation? all things that we think about, all things that we have in the back of our minds. But why? People need to be loved. People need to be seen. You want to be loved. You want to be seen. We live in a world full of people who have felt rejected. We live in a world full of people that were not chosen because of the color of their skin, their gender, who they love. They were not chosen. What if we can live in a place like Tomorrowland, where we actually love one another just because we do? Now, I know people are going, that sounds really good, and it's not possible. But in my heart of hearts, I believe that a place like this is possible because we can make a decision. We can make a decision one by one to choose different. We can make a decision to meet beautiful new people and different cultures and nationalities and learn about them without coming in thinking we know, because most of the times we really don't. We can actually do it. And so what's next? What's next is that you take this beautiful reality of Tomorrowland, this beautiful place that I've transported you in your home, with you everywhere you go, introducing it to your friends and to your family, so that little by little, Tomorrowland can actually be lived today.